Here's the reading of pages 79 to 81. And we're on chapter 6. The sun sets on Sumer. Sumerian civilization reached its golden age during the 3rd millennium BC, and then glowed like a burning ember for another 1,000 years. During that time, from 2500 to 1500 BC, many changes took place in Sumer. By 1700 BC, the civilization that existed in Mesopotamia could no longer be called Sumerian. Let's see how this great change came about. Big changes in Sumer, the beginning of the end. Geographic change played a key part in the decline of Sumer. Over the years, the Sumerians kept irrigating their fields, and though they didn't know it, they were slowly poisoning their own land. Salinization is the scientific name for their problem. The water Sumerians used for irrigation contained salt. The land they cultivated was very flat and had poor drainage, so the salt water stayed on the land a long time, and salt remained in the soil, making it less and less fertile. Crops no longer grew well in what once had been a fertile plain. The problem became more serious between 2400 and 1700 BC, and in later centuries harmed agriculture throughout the Middle East. Sumer faced another problem. It grew too fast for its own good. When Sumer was young, its cities were small and separated by stretches of swampland or desert. Rulers from different cities often met to share ideas. But over the years, the population grew, and so did the cities. Uruk, Kish, Lagash, and Umma. Each began to cover more and more land. People drained swamps and irrigated deserts to grow crops. The cities became city-states. A city-state was made up of the city itself plus the land around it. Both the city and the surrounding lands were under the same political control. Soon the grain fields of one city-state bordered those of another. The rulers of various city-states became rivals for territory, and the Sumerians fought with each other over boundaries and water rights. Some city-states even built canals that brought water away from the fields of other city-states into their own. That led to more fighting. Each city-state wanted to be the most important of all. First one and then another claimed power over all of Sumer. Wars broke out to see who was the strongest. Wars between the city-states were often long, hard, and brutal. The armies used foot soldiers as well as troops who fought from donkey-drawn carts. Soldiers clad in copper helmets and leather kilts brandished swords, spears, and shields. After a battle with another city-state, the winning army would often kill all its prisoners. The king of one city-state boasted that in just one battle he killed 3,000 of the enemy. Sometimes the victors sold prisoners as slaves or held them for ransom. Sometimes they pillaged and destroyed the captured city. The victorious troops would knock its temple to the ground. The worst thing that could happen to a city-state, because the destruction of the temple meant that its god had gone down in defeat. Over the years, kings of stronger city-states managed to dominate weaker ones. In the late 24th century BC, the king of the city-state called Umma brought most of the other Sumerian city-states under his control. That marked the beginning of the world's first empire. It did not last long, however, for fighting soon broke out again among the city-states. War, or the threat of war, was a constant fact of life. Hardly a healthy state of affairs for the long-term survival of Sumer. And then this picture over here shows a donkey-drawn cart. All right, a threat from the outside. Wars among the city-states plagued the Sumerians, but their culture faced another big threat, one that came from without. Around the edges of Sumer lived many people who were jealous of Sumerian wealth and ease. They were nomads and herdsmen, not city dwellers. These people had a culture and a way of life of their own, but they had not built civilizations. They liked what they saw in Sumer, however, and wanted a share in some of the good things that civilization brought. Unfortunately for the Sumerians, these people sometimes helped themselves by attacking and robbing Sumerian cities. It wasn't hard for bands of warriors to sweep out of the frontier and strike the Sumerians. Because Sumer was located on the low-lying floodplain of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, it had natural defenses and was open to attack on all sides. It had few natural defenses. The wars between Sumer's city-states made attacks even easier, since a divided, quarreling people are usually easy prey. As the fields of Sumer grew saltier, the harvest less bountiful, and food supplies smaller, the Sumerians may have had a harder time putting up a good fight. As the nomadic peoples kept attacking, Sumerian power began to slip away. The idea of civilization spreads. We've seen how during the 3rd millennium BC, various geographic and political changes led to the decline of Sumer. Still, even though Sumerian civilization was getting weaker, the basic ideas behind civilization, such as the division of labor and city building, were strong and were appearing beyond Sumer. By 3100 BC, in the valley of the Nile River, the Egyptians began to build one of the world's earliest civilizations. By 2500 BC, people living in the valley of the Indus River had also built a civilization. And far away in what we now know as China, civilization was flourishing by about 2000 BC. The map on pages 82 and 83 shows these cradles of civilization in Sumer, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China. Each began independently and apart from the others. Yet ideas spread easily, even in ancient times. People carrying goods from one region to another would tell others about new ways of growing crops, making things, and living together. As these ideas spread, more and more people learned that it was possible to settle down in one place, build cities, and find a better way of life. As the Sumerian, Egyptian, and Indus River Valley civilizations developed, their people came in contact with each other. They traded ideas and skills. Each civilization borrowed new ways from the others. Each civilization, in turn, could act as a center from which the idea of civilization would spread. While trade led to peaceful contact between peoples, ideas and civilization also spread through war. Let's learn about how war changed civilization throughout the Middle East. And as you can see, here's more pictures or sculptures showing this is like a merchant, and then this down here would be laborers on a ship. And let's take a look at that page, that map on page 82 and 83. As you can see here, we have Sumer here in the middle, which was the earliest, and then we have Egypt, which was the next earliest, and then we have the Indus River, and then lastly China. And we're going to be visiting all of these in lessons to come. So that's the end of the reading of pages 79 to 81.